Hello everyone and welcome to Conversations with the Dean. I'm Turney Stevens. I'm the Dean of the College of Business at Lipscomb University, and I'm delighted today to welcome to the campus of Lipscomb Ron Samuels. Ron, welcome.
Thank you, Turney. Glad to be here.
Ron is the Chairman, President, and CEO of Avenue Bank. He's an old friend, but he's really here because he's the recipient of the Leadership Award from the Dean Institute at an event that we planned this week. Ron, congratulations. That's a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Well, thank you so much, Turney. I'm honored and delighted to be here and be the second recipient of this award. So,
well, we're honored to give you the award, and I'm really excited today to talk with you because there's so many different directions we could go with this conversation. Yeah. You and I first met, I guess, almost 40 years ago,
sure
right
was.
After you first came to Nashville. You've worked in several different banking situations, and now in recent years, you were the instigator, the leader that caused the Avenue Bank to be formed. I think it's very interesting. I was driving down one of the streets in Green Hills the other day counting the number of community banks, and I think I stopped at about 10. Yeah. What gives community banks the opportunity to break into the market like they're finding?
Well, there's 69 banks to be accurate with the number in our community, and what happens is over time banks kind of get away from serving customers, listening, and as they get larger, sometimes it's just harder to control things. The regulatory environment today is challenging, but people want personal service, and they want people that'll answer their phone. They want to get directly to somebody, and efficiencies in larger companies, it doesn't make them not able to serve customers, but the efficiencies sometimes drive the 1-800 number or service through different new technologies.
Now, when you formed Avenue Bank, Ron, I know that you and your partners raised a pretty substantial amount of money.
Right.
How much money did it take to really create the capital base necessary?
Well, we raised $75 million. And of course, some people were questioning the timing of this. This was January of 2007. We found a bank to buy the charter in West Tennessee. So we bought that bank, and subject to raising the $75 million. And it was the largest capital raise at that time, really for a de novo startup bank in Tennessee. There have been a number of banks since that have raised additional money, and we actually had committed $92 million, and the right number for us was $75 million. So we decided we would be able to get our internal rate of return, on the 75.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've survived the downturn, and how's business today? Is it good?
Business has been exceptional. We sometimes smile. I mean, we were in the perfect storm. Nothing went right from almost day one. We closed on our $75 million raise February the 15th of 2007. And by March, we heard the word subprime over and over again. By the end of 2007, the interest rates were not what had been the consensus prime rate was to be 9%. They were about 7%. And we started at 8.25%. So we were already on the downturn. By late 2008 and early 2009, prime rate dropped 500 basis points. So we had a Fed funds rate of 5.25%, a prime of 8.25%, and headed out thinking we were going to 9%, and the bottom fell out.
Mm-hmm. Ron, you've built several branches around town, and I guess at one level I was a little surprised to see all of those branches come out of the ground, because we hear a lot today about internet banking and online banking, and yet you all made the commitment to create some bricks and mortar presence. What was your strategy about that?
Well, truly, I don't think we're going to get away from bricks and mortar, but well-located branches are still the source for less costlier deposits. So we gather deposits. It's not a complex business. We gather deposits and we lend them out. And for us, it was really a matter of looking down an area where the majority of the deposits were. So we went from downtown out to West End, to Green Hills, and to Cool Springs. So if you follow 65 or something similar, you would see, and at that time too, we were competing for the locations, not just from banks and credit unions, but you know, Panera Bread, major retailers, Verizon, people that you know had a strong retail presence. With the market becoming tighter, rents in New York, Chicago, Boston were high, so secondary cities like Nashville suddenly saw a little more interest in lower cost per square foot. We got out and really put up 4 branches, and that's what our plan called for, in 4 to 5 branches in 5 years, and that's right where we are.
Your marketing has always impressed me, and
Thank you.
When you first came out, you came out with a logo that has a hummingbird on it. And I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about the history of how that developed and why you chose a hummingbird as a symbol.
Well, we wanted to brand something new, and the Avenue name was something that we spent a lot of time and energy on, had a team of people working with us. Every employee that we had the opportunity to participate in naming the bank. Avenue, the word, means a path towards something. And we love the concept of taking people along a path toward financial, you know, responsibility and success and creating wealth and helping them maintain that. The Hummingbird was an interesting piece. We had a team of folks that included Mark Montgomery in the music business, Keel Hunt, Jerry Atnip, Gish Sherwood and friends. There we had Jeff Lipscomb involved. And it was really the thought of them. They followed us around. They literally lived with us in a floor in the baggage building that had not been built out, where we had $39 Costco tables, folding chairs we had borrowed from a church that one of our folks were starting. And as they looked at it, they said, the hummingbird is one of those birds very loyal. They kept hearing us talk about loyalty. They kept hearing us talk about service and responsiveness, speed. The hummingbird's a very fast little bird. It also does magical things. It can fly backwards. And we kept talking about, we got to have the magic to it. And as they looked at that, they thought that the hummingbird, with that stamina, that spirit, and responsiveness was the perfect icon for us. And so when they showed us a number of these things, and in a room we have in the bank called the Smart Room, we have a lot of the memorabilia from the time where we were starting, and some of the charts have been cut up, and you can see the process that the name took, and it's very fitting for us.
Now, your career has spanned a number of years. I mentioned a minute ago that you and I first met, I guess, almost 40 years ago. Right. And you've worked at Nashville City Bank with some very impressive people like Jimmy Webb, who is not only a great banker, but also a great community leader.
Right.
You've worked at other banks with other great leaders. Ron, I was just so impressed to see the booklet that you give, I guess, all new bank employees, called A Collection of Our Family Values.
Right.
A collection of our family values. What's this book all about?
Well, it's really what we talked about the whole time when we started the bank, and as we hired people, and they would want me to give them something, you know, to put on paper. And so finally, after about 6 to 9 months, I kept kind of pushing off the culture thing, but culture is so important in any organization. And I said early on, look, we've got a personality here, and as we develop it, it will become a culture. Well, they kind of cornered me one day and said, let's get some of the things that you talk about down on paper. And one of the things that I typically talk about is, you know, the foundation that we have. You know, I talk about my growing up in the 50s. We didn't lock our doors down in Memphis. We played when the sun went down, and we would hear Mom call. You know, all those things you picture. But more importantly, I think we were committed to our churches and our community. I felt like I was at church every day of the week when I was really, a good old Methodist back then, and I was actually there on Wednesday night, for church service. I was there early on for Sunday school, church that day, and we usually had dinner on the grounds. Back that night for a little more, and then in the summers, had the summer Bible school classes during the summer. And so foundationally, I didn't think I was, maybe all that was sticking, but what you really learn as a kid and what you think you're not paying attention to sets those foundations. So this book was basically set to say this is what the Avenue Way looks like. And a lot of it's attitude, Turney. It's about, and one of my favorite sayings is from W. Clement Stone. There's very little difference in people. Little difference is attitude. Big difference is whether it's positive or negative. If you look in the book there, you'll see what we think about negative attitudes, and it's a blank page. So we ask, how are you going to be positive today? And we ask questions. So the other thing is we're simple. We want to be responsive. Genuine, authentic is what we talk about a lot. And those things are, don't try to be somebody you're not. Be yourself. We really embrace the difference in people. And in fact, not one person on my management team has the same Myers-Briggs profile. And we're kind of proud of that because that challenges the status quo in our company. And one of my favorite lines in the book is, be the solution. Grab a couple of people if you need be. We believe that 2 heads are better than 1. And go in the smart room. And who knows, you may just have the idea that changes the course of our business. So we really value that. And, honesty, integrity are givens. So when we look at our company, we recognize that it's a bunch of little things that really matter. And so we really focus on getting our people to play, where showing up is important. Showing up on time prepared, dressed, ready to play is fundamental in our business. And we like to look around when we're at events. We get to come out here on campus. We usually have a number of people from Avenue Bank that are here. And it goes back to those times when, I was growing up playing baseball and running around every day, and you had team sports. You learned how to compromise. And so it's really important that there's no whining, no excuses, be the solution.
I heard Charles Barkley interviewed the other day, and he was asked the question, why has Michael Jordan not been more successful as a basketball executive? And he had a really interesting answer. I think it says a lot about leadership and leaders. He said, well, my theory is that nobody wants to say no to Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. Everybody that works for him is in awe of him. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if I worked for Avenue Bank, could I say no to Ron Samuels?
A lot of people do. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And in fact, I'm challenged every day, and I love that. That's really what we feel like makes the best company, is that you embrace different thoughts and ideas. The fundamentals of banking are pretty well written about. The fact that credit quality absolutely is essential. When we started this bank, we said, look, we want to be different. Everybody that I talked to would say, Ron, not another bank. And I said, well, this is not going to be just another bank. Well, and you talked about our advertising, our marketing. First ad was not another bank. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. And right underneath there, the difference is real. Many of our employees had never done anything like this before. Nobody thought of themselves as entrepreneurs. And this is a huge entrepreneur effort. So people wanted to be told a little bit more what to do. So it was a real challenge for me to get them out of the box. Look, you're free. We start with a blank sheet of paper. A lot of people are uncomfortable in that. But when we said we wanted to be different, and that's where we came up with the difference is real, people wanted that defined. And I would not define it. What we did is we hung up those chalkboard or the paper board on the walls, and we said, if you define what the difference will be. And it doesn't matter, just when you're walking by, if something hits you, write it up there. And we collected all of those things. And then we waited till July the 9th, 07, when we opened the Cumming Station branch to see what the difference would be. It's simple. It's these small things. One of the big differences is when you walk into our office, the people we hired welcome you. That was natural. So we hired the right people. It was different. They got up out of their desk, greeted you at the door, learned your name, and will call you by name. We didn't script that. That's just who they are. It was part of the values that we were looking for when we hired somebody.
So how do you pass that along now as your time comes and goes? How do you put that into the fabric of the culture so deeply that it survives you?
Well, one of the things, and that's a question I get asked. I have a little once a quarter chairman's lunch where we invite 11 or 12 of the employees to come in, sit down and talk to me, kind of tell me how I'm doing. You know, this is where I get my feedback. And we really embrace that. And you know, one of the biggest concerns is how do we hold this together as we get bigger? My answer's always been the same. I don't own that. You do. So if you like this culture, if you like what we're doing, let's make it as successful as it possibly can be, and you get to keep it because it's not just me, you own it. And we have a culture club led by one of our young executives, Andy Moats, and Andy does a fabulous job. He put a team together, and they look at things and they either say that fits Avenue Bank's culture, or maybe we ought to reconsider, you know, something else. And it's fun to watch this. People have to see you walk the talk. You know, a lot of people are going to wait, you know, because they think, well, this can't be this good. And it's exciting to be a part of our organization today. We had a vision to be a signature bank. And people ask, well, what's a signature bank? I said, I don't know. You're going to tell me what that is. And they said, well, how do we become it if you don't tell us? And I said, you'll know. And what happens, I said, well, here's one way you'll know. Give us all you got every day. I love Coach John Wooden. And he never talked about winning. He wouldn't tell them the answer. If you'll look in the book, we finish most of this with a question. How are you going to be amazing today? You know, will you put your signature to today? And that was what I asked people. I said, look, you know, we sign things all the time. So when you finish today, will you sign that I did the best I could today? Kind of a little, you know, maybe geeky about that. But I said, you don't have to sign it in ink every day. You may want a pencil sometimes, but it's okay. Give us the best you got. And so it leaves people with a lot of room.
Well, let me go back to the book for just a moment, and I'll just thumb through 3 or 4 pages here, and you stop me on any that you'd like to talk about. The first one here is if you see a problem, be the solution. It's about the right people and the right jobs, doing the right things right now.
Yeah, let me talk about that because a lot of people miss that. You hear a lot of people say you got to get the right person in the right job, but that's just one piece of it. I learned that the hard way. As you mentioned, I had some great mentors. Nobody gets to do what I've done without having a lot of people lift you up. And Jimmy Webb, George Yowell, John Sloan. John and I were back at the old First Tennessee when I first met you. And, you know, right. You learn a lot from these folks. So, you know, when we say right person in the right job, 1987, bank mergers really begin. Things are hot. Nashville City Bank gets bought by Dominion Bank shares. Ron's asked to go out to the community banks, the 13 we bought. Ron, we need to get these up to the same thing. We're going to consolidate. Well, the first lesson I learned real quick is Aunt Susie that's been there 30 years, that the folks tell me, you can't get rid of Aunt Susie. I said, okay, we can't get rid of Aunt Susie then. We write her down. Well, a year later, I realized we got to get rid of Aunt Susie. Now, how do we do that and do it right? Because another fundamental of this is do the right thing. And what you have to do is you have to know the end of the story. And I didn't know at that time. So, you know, now I've seen that movie over and over again. I knew that we weren't doing that person any service by leaving them in the wrong job. So we started that process, get the right person in the right job. If you get the right person in the right job, and then you get them doing the right things with the, kind of right now, a little sense of urgency, the company is lifted, and people love to work that way. So big lesson for me was, let's help people see that. I said to them many times, look, second year, I know where we're going, and I'd made mistakes over and over again. And I said, look, doesn't make you a bad person. You just may not want to go with us here, but you got to know where you're going.
So have people already come and gone in the
a few?
History of Avenue
Yeah,
Bank?
in Avenue Bank, sure. We've grown rapidly. People that were perfect for a job, and some people self-select. Now, the one thing you can't do in a small company is you can't hide. Everybody's accountable.
Mm-hmm.
When you say the culture, how do you keep this? Well, everybody around you. Be the solution is why there's no negative attitudes. Or we try to keep that, because if you see something you don't like at Avenue Bank and what we're doing, all you have to do is come with a solution. We're going to listen, because we don't want people standing around the water cooler there talking bad and about something we're doing and not know that. We're open to try to fix it, do the right thing.
We're going to run out of time if I don't move quickly, but I did want to just sum through another
Sure.
page or two here. The difference is recognizing how big the little things are. Here's an interesting one. Show up on time, prepared, show up on time, prepared, and dressed to play.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that one?
Well, I'll tell you, there was a guy named Mike Mescon that started me out on the showing up piece. Mike was a Georgia State professor, taught at the Rutgers School of Banking, and when I first heard him mention, I'm going to give you the secret to success, he said, show up, and walked off the stage, and then came back in a couple of minutes. And of course, we're all sitting there, and I thought it was pretty funny. And then he goes on to say, and it's sort of, I've added a little more to the program, but when you go back and you look at successful people, what you find out is they weren't afraid to put themselves out there. So, take a chance on being great. Get up to bat. You can't be a home run hitter unless you're batting. Mm-hmm. So, this was part of, if you're going to be successful, you got to get out there and make something happen. Show up on time. And if you show up on time and prepared, you'll be leading the group most often.
And it's easy to forget the Hall of Fame players, the Hall of Fame baseball players fail 2/3 of the time.
That's right. 1/3 gets you big time player.
All into the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
That's exactly right. Well, just a couple more here. We're not afraid of challenging the status quo. Every day is a great day at Avenue Bank.
That's Kent Cleaver's favorite.
Did he give you that one?
Yeah, he gave me that one. Every day is a great day. We're living the dream there.
Yeah. Well, you really are. We actually answer the phone. That's an interesting one. Most of us don't even have a phone anymore.
Right, or it's a cell phone.
Or it's a cell phone,
that's right. Well, that was funny because one of the guys in the first offerings I made and talk said, what are you going to do different? And just off the top of my head, I said, we're going to answer the phone. And then he told one of the best stories I've ever heard about his current bank, and he was trying to get something done and was on there 45 minutes before he could get to a live person. And that was part of, back to an earlier question of, how can these community banks make it? It's not magical. This is back to the future. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a back to, what do you expect? And it's fun to be able to pick up the phone and, call your banker. Second ad we had was, who's your banker? It never failed when we asked somebody that. They would say, I bank at X bank. We said, no. We ask, who is your banker? Most people do not have a banker anymore, and one that they have their direct number. All our people feel like they're 24/7. They've got a cell phone. They take calls. They answer their phone.
So you view a banker much like most of us would view our physician. It's a very personal relationship.
Absolutely. This is all about relationships. Mm-hmm. Our business is about relationships. We hope that you immediately see the difference. The marketing starts from the premises. It starts, all of our offices have a a ceiling that's a little bit lower. It has a pathway, a little beak. It looks like the carpeting is done the same way, the same color woods, the same similar photography. And we support the creative arts here. We believe in Nashville, and we buy original pieces of art for our office, and like to showcase that.
And all the branches are very architecturally unique and creative. There is a similarity, as you just said, but there's also a uniqueness. Sebe Tuck, I think, was your architect.
Sebe and his organization, Mary Ross Kelly, they were all part of that creative team, and this all came together not by just one or two people. This was an effort by a lot of people, and I failed to mention Sebe and Mary, but they did a fabulous job, and couldn't have done it without them.
Well, here's one that will be a good segue into some other things I'd like to talk about, because you're a former chairman of the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And I know you've spent a lot of time, an amazing amount of time, working in civic affairs and building Nashville. This one says, we aren't just in Nashville, we are Nashville.
Yeah.
So tie that into not only the bank, but also your out of the office career.
Yeah, it's about that. I mean, you know, when you start looking at, you know, where your values come from, life's a product of your values, and you make choices and decisions. We encourage every employee to be involved in some community, civic, educational activity. We really encourage them to support their children in their schools. We have a pencil partner, Smiths and Craighead. I was out reading to them last week. It's fabulous, you know, very energizing. But, you know, I think that's part of me. It's a part of who we are as a company to give back. And I think you learn that early on through, you know, being out there at the Sunday social on the church grounds. I may not have been paying a lot of attention, but some things stuck. And, you know, part of that was, you know, you always look around. I didn't know whether we were rich or poor when I was growing up. I had no idea. I felt very comfortable, very loved, and had a lot of people that had high expectations for me. And so giving back to the community, being involved, it's just part of the DNA of Avenue Bank. And so that was part of that signature we want to leave for Nashville, is to give back.
Do you like where we are as a city today? Do you feel good about where Nashville is?
I love it. Nashville has come a long way in the last 36 years. As you know, when we met, you probably wouldn't have gone past, say, 7th Avenue. Got a little bit anxious as you walk down there after dark. Today, you can stand up there at 10th Avenue, look down to Riverfront, and see a landscape you're very proud of. You know, you see Bridgestone Arena. We have a National Hockey League team playing there, a wonderful team that's we're hoping going to go a long way in the playoffs. Look across the river and see the stadium, LP Field, and see the Titans. And then you look, coming back up to Mumbrium, you've got a unbelievable symphony hall there, the Skirmahorn Center. And the great picture I have in our headquarters is the Skirmahorn Fountain with the Country Music Hall of Fame tower in the background. And says a lot about who Nashville is today. Been very fortunate. We had great leadership here in the local government. Our governors, the last 20 years, had vision, and a community that stepped up and made things happen.
And I know, because I served on your subcommittee, your financing subcommittee for the new Music City Center,
right,
that you worked very hard to create a plan that ultimately did get approved by the Metro Council and by the mayor to create what I think will be one of the absolute stellar convention centers in all of America. But it's been very controversial. We're spending $750 million almost. Right. Is it going to work?
It's absolutely going to work, and already you can see the magnificent facility. It's not a box, but think about what drives the economy here in Nashville. Healthcare is the largest driver. Hospitality is the second largest. You've got Gaylord here, who drives tremendous amount of hospitality and conventions here. I think the thing that really validated we had made the right move was the Omni Hotel folks saying, we're coming out of pocket here. The joint venture with the Country Music Hall of Fame. Now look at the women's Final Four. Now think about what it looked like downtown Nashville the last week with the women's event and the SEC women's tournament, and then the OVC men's and women down the street. I saw Mike's live. I was leaving the GNAR function Saturday night. Mike's live, standing in front of the Hilton Hotel, and I went up and said hello to him, and he and I have known each other for 20 years or so, and I said, Mike, this has been quite a week, and he just looked around and he says, only in Nashville this can happen. You know, and we create that specialness for everybody. It doesn't matter what kind of event, whether it's music, sports. And we have, in the last 20 years, in this 10-county area, net new jobs, over 235,000 net new jobs. Our population increased 60% in 20 years. People are betting on Nashville. I couldn't raise $75 million off of Wall Street if people didn't believe that Nashville is the next big thing. And I think our future is solid. That convention center is going to anchor many, many great functions. And, you know, we might even be a host to a Final Four NCAA one day.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would be great.
That would be great. Now, we're going to run out of time here in a minute, and I don't want to let our time expire until I disclose to our viewers a little bit about the secret Ron Samuels that I know about that not everybody knows about. For example, most people probably don't know that you grew up next door to Elvis Presley. So tell me about what it was like growing up next to Elvis Presley's house.
It was probably the most fun a 13-year-old kid could ever have in his life. I was probably run off that stone wall behind the swimming pool at Elvis's more than any kid ever. They knew me for certain. My running buddy, Woody Page, who's now with ESPN and a Denver sports writer for the Denver Post. I think he's sports editor out there. He and I played in that field growing up, had a blast. But we, you know, it was one of those things that was pretty common to see Elvis on his Harley with some beautiful young lady on the back, or up at the football field where he played the touch football games. We were just a tad young to get in the game, but we were there expecting a jersey to be thrown our way any moment, but never happened.
And I think I remember you telling me once a story about Elvis pulling up on one of those motorcycle rides, and on the back of his motorcycle was Natalie Wood, I think.
That is true.
Did you tell me that story?
I did, yep. It's a great thrill for a 13-year-old, for sure.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. And then you went on to Ole Miss.
Yes.
You went to college at Ole Miss, and you weren't through hobnobbing with the rich and famous, because your fraternity brother at Ole Miss was none other than Archie Manning, as I remember.
That's right.
So that must have been an interesting new relationship, and you've carried that relationship through life, haven't you?
Right. It's been pretty interesting. Trent Lott was a law school student there, picked me out of the lineup going through Rush. He was a Sigma Nu, and many other Sigma Nus were working in Washington over the last 30 years or so. But Archie was a young kid from Drew, Mississippi, who showed up, and I was a houseboy at the Delta Gamma house there, and Archie's wife-to-be, Olivia, was Delta Gamma. Her brother was also a Sigma Nu with us, so that connect stayed. And then after school, the couple, Bill and Marcia Thompson from Memphis, introduced me to my wife, Lynn, on a blind date. Little did we know, 30 years later, their daughter, Ashley, would marry Peyton Manning. So Archie and I end up together, and then on top of that, Eli has his coming out party here for the Music City Bowl, which I chaired that year, and caught a lot of grief, but I wasn't part of the selection committee. I pointed out to them. I left that to Toby Wilp.
Well, now, before you think you've got an exclusive on the Manning family, I might just point out that Eli's wife,
oh yes,
her mother is actually a Lipscomb alum. In fact, she was a College of Business alum. She majored in business here, Susan McGrew. So we're proud of that relationship.
Well, you should be. I haven't met Susan. Look forward to that. I've enjoyed a great relationship with the Mannings.
Well, it's been great to have you on
Thank
the program
you.
today,
Thanks so much.
Ron.
I've
Thank
enjoyed
you for,
it. Love it.
And
Thank you.
congratulations on receiving the Dean Institute Leadership
Well,
Award.
I'm very honored. I appreciate the recognition y'all have given me. It's special.
Well,
Thank
you're a special person, and the bank has done very well, I know, because of your unique leadership characteristics and traits. Congratulations.
Thanks.
On that. My guest today has been Ron Samuels, who's the chairman, president, and CEO of Avenue Bank here in Nashville. I hope you'll join us again soon for Conversations with the Dean.